forgive me if I don't. I've always found the story confusing. I think probably a lot of people do. I mean, I followed it, but there'd be times when my hair would just start to hurt because, it just gets it's
yours.
Well, I know. Who am I to complain? But would you have filed suit against any reporters? You have a rogues gallery of reporters, and
Indeed.
you kind of let you go there in your book.
I put my case aside for the moment. I think the media has poorly served. I know this is a gross generalization, but that's what generalizations are. I think the media poorly served the American public in the run-up to the war.
Yeah.
They essentially took whatever was spooned up and offered to them by senior administration officials. If they had spent any shoe leather whatsoever, they might have talked to, say, mid-level managers at the Pentagon or other people throughout town, and they would have gotten a completely different picture of what they thought about the invasion of Iraq, the possibility of an insurgency, post-war planning. So I think the media has a lot to answer.
What's interesting about your case, I think, though, is that it pulled into the web some of the biggest names in Washington journalism. Tim Russert, Bob Woodward, people whose, and the aforementioned Novak, but I think particularly of people like Woodward and Russert, they have these august reputations, and I would imagine you held them in esteem before, or maybe not. But I mean, you seem to have been very surprised by Bob Woodward, for example.
I was, and a lot of this came out in the course of Mr. Libby's trial. How much? First of all, I found it interesting that to get the jury pool, it turns out. It confirmed what we already know. Washington is a really small town. They could hardly find anyone.
Yeah, I can imagine.
That didn't, our kids play together, or, there was a cleaning lady for Condoleezza Rice. I mean, it was really quite something. The very close relationship between the media and the White House. Now, this is not huge news. This has always been close with the Washington Press Corps and the White House. But I think this particular White House has taken it to unprecedented levels
of control,
intimidation, aggression, to seek to shape the story.
And do you think even with people like Bob Woodward and Tim Russert?
Well, in Bob Woodward's case, which I write about in the book, you're right. Who doesn't have the image of Bob Woodward as Redford, as Redford, and taking down a powerful president, corrupt cronies around him, and so when I read that Woodward knew that this investigation was going on, that he had played a role in it by speaking to Deputy Undersecretary, whatever his title was, Armitage, in this gossip session, Armitage's word, not mine, and he did not come forward. I feel that he did not live up to his responsibilities as a citizen.
Yeah.
And furthermore, he went out and spoke publicly about, he gave his opinion, which he's entitled to do, but without telling the public what his role was.
Well, and his reason was?
Basically he said, I didn't want to be questioned. That's real lion-hearted, isn't it?
Well, coming from the CIA, that had to be a particularly poignant comment, that...
the sourcing.
He didn't want to go on the witness stand because he didn't want to have to reveal everything he knows.
And that's why Judith Miller spent 4 months cooling her heels in jail, because the special prosecutor felt that she had responsibilities as a citizen to fulfill. I don't want to make this journalism ethics 101, but, in this case, there is all the Washington pundits, getting really self-righteous about protecting sources. Excuse me, this was not the Pentagon Papers. This was not Watergate. This was turned on its head. They were obstructing the public understanding of government wrongdoing.
Do you have a different view of the media now than you used to? Are you one of those people who's now a non-smoker?
I think it's fair to say that I'm certainly a little more cynical. And having been at the center...
And that's coming from a CIA background.
Yeah, but I still, I watch Meet the Press like everyone else. Yeah. But having been at the center of this and and having seen my name and that of my husband's in print with characterizations that have nothing to do with what actually happened or who we are or how we conducted ourselves, I can't help but go, well, where else does that slide into? Yeah, and I think as I have traveled all over the country and spoken to so many people, especially students on college campuses, and they are really hungry for news. They feel betrayed by the mainstream media. And where do they find an accurate portrayal of what's going on?
Haven't you found? I mean, don't you think that reporters in Washington have kind of always had a little spy fantasy thing going on, and you kind of became their pinup girl? but then, you know, you opened your mouth and you had a defined personality and a defined point of view, and you kind of bit back a little bit so that, you know, you were not playing necessarily the role they wanted you to play.
Well,
you
obviously,
looked it.
Obviously, I could not speak while I was an employee of the CIA, and I did not do so. And I didn't speak even after I resigned. I was writing my book. I spoke 3 sentences when we filed our civil suit last summer, and it has really only been with my book coming out because finally, after a long and painful, protracted fight with the CIA over what was allowed and what was not, did I feel comfortable knowing what my parameters were.
Right.
And you know, I'm a professional intelligence officer. I have no desire to betray classified information. But I believe strongly that in this case, the CIA, much to my deep disappointment, allowed itself to be used as a tool by vindictive administration and making sure, trying to do their best to make sure that the book would not be published.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I have a point of view. I haven't spoken for a variety of reasons, but now with my book, I do feel that, you know, this is an important story to tell.
As much as you can. But your looks did play a role. And, but you are an attractive woman, and you were happy to find out that you were considered hot.
Yeah, rather than, who's that really ugly blonde girl?
Has Playboy offered you a spread yet?
Oh, my God, I'm a mother of twins. What, are you kidding me?
I can't imagine that stopping Hugh Hefner. I'm sure that's still in your future. But I could see it happening. But you went from such a private life. I mean, there is no more private life than a covert spy, to the most public of lives. And I can't imagine what that does to one's internal
psyche.
You'll never have your privacy again, really.
No, you can't get that back. If none of this had happened, I would be living overseas now with my family. I would be working on counterproliferation issues at my GS whatever salary.
Yeah.
And feeling still a great sense of satisfaction on working on those things that I care deeply about. But that's not how it unfolded. And so it's one of the really pernicious and persistent lies throughout this, put out there by the administration supporters, was that I wasn't really covert, that everyone on the Georgetown cocktail circuit knew who I was and where I worked. And which is such a joke, because first of all, we weren't even on the Georgetown party circuit.
Only after, and that was
because we're the flavor, the flavor of the week,
Right. But don't you feel now that has been put to rest sufficiently?
I hope so, but it does still keep cropping up. I mean, it won't go away, which shows the power, the testament of, if you repeat a lie.
Well, you could do a Patty Hearst and get a picture out there of you instead of in an evening gown, with guns or something.
Right. She's changed her image for sure.
This is from.
But. Yeah, the director of the CIA, General Michael Hayden, confirmed I was covert. The judge in Mr. Libby's trial, the special prosecutor, there is no question.
Well, you had the unfortunate byproduct probably being an attractive woman, and so it wasn't as easy to sell. Well, how could she have been covert? She's a woman looking like that.
I think there's also,
if you've been in glasses and kind of,
but there's
not
also
attractive look like
a sense of misogyny. I would say, she's just a girl. How could she possibly have done?
She has blonde hair.
How could she have done something?
You needed to look like Lottie Lenya, and I think it was from Russia with Love, and you have spikes in your shoes.